I started the recording. Do you see that I started the recording? Oh, I do. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it says it started.
Okay, got it. All right, so this is the Community Preservation Committee meeting on November 1st, 2022. And why don't we just go around and introduce ourselves. My name is Ann Mazar, and I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, and I represent the Land Use Committee. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Dan Byer. I'm the Parks Commission rep to the Community Preservation Commission.
Mike Goddard. You're on mute.
Mike Goddard, Select Board rep.
Thank you. Mike Mendelia.
Mike Mendelia, Conservation rep.
From Florida, with the palm trees in the background. Lynn.
Lynn Roberts, Historical Commission representative.
Barry.
Barry Iderola, Planning Board representative.
Okay, great. So, well, the first thing I have on the agenda is to talk about the shared affordable housing coordinator. And the CMRPC is finding towns that want that. Well, the CMRPC, the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, is looking for a person that they can hire full time, but then spend a certain amount of hours in the smaller towns like Mendon. So Mendon would get like 4 hours a week for this person. And the advantage of that is that you would have all the expertise from CMRPC. You would hire a person that is really qualified, that has the education, because you really can't hire someone for 4 hours a week that would have that background. The other advantage is that since that person's working with several towns, what works in one town they could share with Mendon. And they would record the hours that they work and what they did in each town, so we'd have that information. And for Mendon, it would be around. Well, actually, the first year they're going to try to get a grant, so it would be free for the first year. And so the second year would be around $18,000 a year. So what questions do people have? Dan?
I think my only comment when I looked it over, I mean, I think, short term, I think it makes a ton of sense because that's one of those super difficult positions to fill, especially when we don't need a 40-hour person. It just seems really expensive. Like as soon as we get up above 10, 11, 12 hours a week, it seems like at that point it'd be cheaper to, we could hire a full-time person for the money they're going to charge us.
I think the 4 hours will, in the near term, will definitely cover what we need.
I do think it would solve, especially if Bill's looking to step back, it would solve a short-term problem for sure and get us some real, CMRPC has been awesome from what I've seen in the master plan.
Mike, did you have a question? Mike,
I kind of agree with Dan. I think short term might make sense, but I thought it was fairly expensive when I was, that was an hourly rate was pretty high as I looked at it. I also think we should be very specific with what we intend this resource to do in 4 hours a week, but also cross-reference with, we need to sit down with Kim and maybe the board to say, are there other positions that that could do some of this work as well, longer term planning wise. Because I feel like I'm since I've been back, I see, we've got town planner, assistant town planner type of resources being brought on, all good things, but we might be able to get some synergies across these different positions and to create what the town really needs.
What's really tough though is like for the planner, it's really specific skills, and having Jack Hunter here has been incredibly helpful. He just has so much information, and things that would, we would fumble through. He's like, no, X, Y, and Z, this is what you do, and blah, blah, blah. And so, having the expertise is very helpful. On the affordable housing, it's also, the state programs are really convoluted and kind of complicated, and it takes a while for someone to, to get their bearing. And And also we have the funding in the community preservation funds, and the state is happy to have us spend it for that because it'll help us utilize the funds that we have in the community preservation funds better. You know, I'm not really sure how to get around it.
Dan, but
So,
I
I'm
just
sorry,
think
what?
I'm in favor of it, but I think there's the details are important here, especially 4 hours a week. What, how will that be? What specifically will they be doing? And, we've got I guess with the grant, and you're saying we got a time to test drive it a little bit before we actually commit. Is that right?
Well, he's working to get a grant, that's the goal. But, I mean, things that would be good is like, we have the funding to do the housing production plan, but you need someone in town to kind of coordinate the meetings and this and that. And we don't have anyone volunteering for that task. So to have somebody move along that process would be really helpful. If 52 Providence Street happens, it would be nice to have more projects like that. And also, things need to be monitored. But yeah, definitely we need to put specifics together as to what we want for Mendon,
I was also wondering if we could align this resource to focus on execution of the housing chapter of the master plan. So could they run with that if there are actions coming out of that?
Yeah, I'm sure they could help with that. I don't know where they're at with the master plan in that section, but so I suppose, so I guess what's the opinion of this board? Like, let's say they're ready, they have enough towns and they want to try to hire someone. They may have a grant, may not have a grant. What is the position of this board in terms of moving forward?
I think for me, the way I see it is we're spending 20,000 now, so this is within that. I think if that number increases, that's going to have to be a discussion. But I think right now it's really, sounds like it's an opportunity to, transition to get CMRPC's expertise for money we're already spending.
Well, my opinion is we're only getting 4 hours a week. If you do some simple math, 4 times 52 is 208 hours. Divide the 20,000, you come out with $96 an hour. That's a lot of money for 4 hours a week. That in reality is going to be hard to quantify what type of work he's doing and what our actual benefits are. So I don't agree with spending that kind of money on it.
I mean, part of the money is overhead and, whatnot at CMRPC.
Why should we be paying their overhead?
Well, I mean, one reason I want to do this is that we don't have a lot of alternatives. We just don't. I mean, we have close to $600,000 in the Affordable Housing Fund. So spending like a $17,000 a year to get started would help us be able to utilize those funds well. And we just don't have another option,
And you'd made a comment, or I think maybe Dan made a comment, Bill's looking to step back, right? And so when I hear we had, Dan, your quote of we spent 20,000 for this now, I'm assuming that's the stipend to Bill that we renew every year?
We do, but we're not spending it this year. He's not taking any money, so, and he didn't take it last year.
But I guess to Mike's point, and I kind of did the math as well, Mike, I had, based on their chart and that contract, I had like $80 an hour, and I said, wow, that's a nice hourly wage this resource gets. But what kind of time did Bill put in support of the town? And I'm assuming he seemed to be much more full-time, or at least closer to full-time than 4 hours a week. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the reasons he seemed full-time is that he did the green communities work. He did the affordable housing. Did he do anything else? I think those two. Conservation he did for a while, so he was kind of had all these like little jobs here and there, so it seemed like he was doing more. But for affordable housing, it went up and down depending on what was happening. But You know, it took him a long time to figure everything out because he's, you know, he doesn't have the background in it. And he's done a great job. But and the thing too is I think that if we went with this person, you know, we could see how it goes. And then if we feel like this is a lot of money and we're not getting what we should be getting out of it, then we can, you know, look to something else. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm amenable to the test drive, the approach, give it a shot, because we don't have a long-term commitment.
Is the
Yeah.
contract for a set amount of time?
I don't think so. I mean, I think once they get someone, probably they'll want some kind of a commitment, you know, just because they're not going to hire, they don't want to hire someone full time and then not. But I will find that out.
I mean, they did lay out a 3-year view, you
Yep.
know, of
Mhm.
so I would think they're going to come back with it's a 3-year commitment.
So
Well,
based on
that's-
that, would we be better off advertising and getting somebody part-time for ourselves?
Right, that's $60,000 if we force to hook up for 3 years. For 4 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
for 3 years. I mean,
mean-
the value's not there. I mean, that's not. I just can't get my head around spending that kind of money for 4 hours a week. What can be done in 4 hours a week? It's gonna take a lot more time. And
Well,
we're paying top dollar.
I think, well, it would be, I mean, the first 3 years, hopefully if they got the grant, would be less than that, because the first year we wouldn't have to pay, hopefully. But also, they're going to be more efficient with their time because it would be hard to find another person that would only want to work 4 hours a week that would have the expertise. When we advertised for the job previously, I mean, the people that applied had zero skill in the area, and you know, we happened to find Bill, but that was sort of lucky. But you know,
Well, can
So,
you identify,
in-
what are our needs? What are our needs? I have never seen anything identified as our hardcore needs.
well, investigating how Mendon can have some housing that's affordable for people. It could be looking at bylaw changes. It could be finding property that you know, affordable housing can be built on. It could be finishing up the project at 52 Providence. You know, I mean, that it's such a need, affordable housing. There are
But
so
Bill
many
Mc-
people that can't live in town.
Bill McHenry wasn't putting 4 hours a week in. He was putting in more hours than that for the stipend he was getting. That's what I'm saying. If we do something on the basis of what we're doing with Bill, we'll get more for our money, wouldn't we?
I just don't think you'll find anybody. That's why, I mean,
You might find a
I mean-
retired person that wants a part-time job.
but it can't be just a person, any person that's, you know, wants to get some extra money. It has to be someone that has some knowledge base, you know?
Look-
Is
look-
there a job description? Have you
Look what
have you
Jack
gone
Hunt is
forward
doing
with a
for us.
job description and
Yeah, I can
actually
send that.
tried?
I can send you what they have. Barry, were you gonna say something?
Look what Jack Hunt is doing for us. He's not full-time.
Yeah, but it's the same position where he is working full-time, but he's shared between different towns. So you're through CMRPC, the same kind of situation, but
So the sample they sent, it does say that it can be terminated with 3 months notice. It doesn't really specify a term. I don't know if that helps any.
Okay.
And then the other thing, I think, to like Mike's point, that was kind of my thought is, you know, maybe for the 4 hours, but as soon as we start adding hours, it probably would make more sense to just regionalize with some towns and cut CMRPC out of it. Because part of the reason it's so expensive is because they're taking, you know, there's some overhead, and you do get all of their expertise backing it up, but we're
Yeah.
paying for that.
And Ian, I might change the dynamic. So if we're going to take the focus off hourly rate as an example, and focus, I think this is sort of where Mike was going as well, is what are we going to get regardless of the cost? So if we have an obligation to maintain a standing housing inventory, production plan, all this administrative work that we're obliged to do to be part of some of these programs, you know, those specific things might be a better way to describe what we're going to get for our money. Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean, I think also that person would work to put together like an affordable housing committee in town so that they could get input and sort of, you know, coordinate projects and figure out what Mendon needs and what direction to go in. You know, I mean, I think we would have to define what we want, but the housing production plan is definitely a first step, you know, so that, you know, we can access grants and things like that. But I can
Any
find out
grant
more
work as well?
information and kind of, I'll let you know like next meeting where they're at. I mean, they're still figuring it out and looking for towns.
I mean, from my
Oops,
perspective.
Mike, I think you're on mute. I think. Wait. No. It was my microphone, I think.
From my perspective, I'm interested, and I think it aligns to some of the, how, lack of a better term, the regionalization efforts that are, you know, popping up around us. So I think it's in line with where the town, from a board standpoint, wants to take it. I would say long-term commitment makes me hesitant. I think the cost is high. I'm wondering if we can get a sense of, from towns that may have their, you know, this role already in place, can we get a comparison to understand, Mike, to your point, is it the going rate? It may be a lot, but it might be the going rate for whatever this job entails. Yeah, some more information like that would be helpful.
I can also bring back to CMRPC that a concern in town is that it's really expensive for 4 hours, you know. All right, well, any other comments or questions, or I'll share the job description that they would have for this person.
I think, Mike, you also raised some issues on your initial email we should just bring back if it wasn't already, and that is like how do things get prioritized? How do we make sure our needs are being met? Who's overseeing and things like that? I think Mike laid that out, a few of those questions in his response to your initial email. I thought that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, they will track their hours and, you know, let us know what they're doing. And then obviously we'll know if it's beneficial to Mendon to see, you know, what the output is. But I think it's worth a try, or at least to get us going with the affordable housing. All right, I'll bring it back for the next meeting and we can talk more about it. I mean, if everybody else has another option, I'm totally willing to listen to it.
Is this something that has to get, this would be on the May meeting is when we normally would vote this, the funding?
Yeah, I mean, it would just be like every year we vote the 20,000, you know, so it would be whatever the cost would be. Yeah. And I guess we would vote nothing if they get the grant.
But
All right.
I guess we have to at the meetings, at the annual town meeting, when we vote it, we should start to help, for lack of a better term, sell the idea, is we should be showing just what we're getting for the buck.
Yep.
I mean, how long, and again, I'm not criticizing Bill at all. I've worked with Bill on the Concom for a lot of years. But what actually did he accomplish? Can you put all that together? What did he accomplish? And how many years did he do that? And how many years have we been pulling 20 grand out? So again,
yep.
I know it might not be the correct way to quantify the worth, but we got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm looking at it like that. What have we gotten in the last 5 years?
And I mean, with Bill, we did get a housing production plan, which took him a long time to put together because he hadn't done something like that. It's outdated, and that's why we need to update it. He's gotten this project at 52 Providence, and you know, he's gotten several grants, which we gave you the information like last year, I think, where you know, he explained how those grants were used, and it was like $50,000 plus in grants. And affordable housing projects take a long time. Other towns or when you read about it, sometimes it'll take like 10 years to get something off the ground because first of all, getting the money for it, affordable housing is not profitable for developers. So you have to do so much background work and, help support what they're doing. You have to get the town involved. You might have to get land, it just takes a long time. So.
Yeah, and I think it's worth exploring. I just need some more information and get some questions answered, things like that. But I think it's worth pursuing, in the near term to see what's what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
You just said something that reminded me. So we had talked about paying them to do a housing production plan, but did we end up approving that or not?
Yep, it's approved.
Just
Yep.
because that's something though that this position would cover theoretically in the future, right? So we wouldn't have to pay additional to have that kind of stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this housing production plan, probably this person would be working with the people at CMRPC because there isn't a point person in town that's going to do that,
Got it.
Yeah.
But then going forwards, that would be something, hopefully that would become part of this position.
True. Yes. Yep. All right. Why don't we move on to the CPA articles on the annual town meeting warrant? And why don't we go over the historical ones first? So Lynn and Dan, do you want to let us know how much they are and what each project is, and then we can make motions.
So the simple one, we had submitted a request. It's already been taken off the warrant for funding to do some work related to old library. But after some conversations in historic, we decided there's just too many other projects going on and that wasn't a priority right now. So we withdrew that.
Might that be on the annual town meeting?
Maybe.
We don't
I
know
think
yet.
Okay.
we got to see how this other stuff goes. So the books, we had asked for some funding to preserve some tax books. Unfortunately, we brought them to Green Dragon. They're very moldy and they're actually outside of Green Dragon's scope. She estimated it could be as much as $20,000 just to have the mold remediation done. She did give us some people to try and talk to get pricing. We haven't been able to pull that off yet. So I think the conversation may need to pivot to understanding, what is the best use of our money. And maybe, I don't know if this is an emergency or if we want to take a step back and understand what these are and if it's truly, worth spending every penny to save them or not, or should we just be looking to digitize them and stabilize them? I don't know.
So-
Yeah, that was one of the, oh, I'm sorry, Anne, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say when I was talking to her, it's not just the books that are really involved. There's a lot of mold in those books. I mean, she suggested that, depending on what we're going to use them for or what they're going to be, anybody's actually going to even look at them for, we could actually just get a box and have them preserved in a box. That doesn't apply to the tax books, though. There is serious mold in those. And the documents that are there too, they're all kind of folded and tied up with pieces of string. It would literally take, a lot just for them to go through it. I mean, I left them there Friday and they said they were going to go through them over the weekend. It was going to take a long time and we don't even know what we're going to do with these things. I think, can we scan that paperwork? We bought the scanner for the Historical Society. Can we scan it and then put these documents in a preservation box that would actually cost less?
So when I talked to her, she basically put the whole tub in the freezer because apparently that's what you do with this type of, to basically stop anything from progressing. They're not even comfortable opening them in their facility because but yes, I think we could short term absolutely get them out, go outside, proper whatever, and digitize them with the scanner. So at least we've got a record, and then maybe regroup and better understand what makes sense to stabilize versus preserve.
Right.
But if it sounds like this maybe might be better off waiting till May, or if the board is comfortable approving, up to 20,000, it sounds like that might be a reasonable number. We're not really going to know. I don't know what others' thoughts are.
What's the plan to do with them? If we do restore them, are we restoring them so they can sit and get moldy again? What's the most important, what's the priority? To preserve the actual information or to preserve the 100-year-old paper or the book or just what is the priority?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure. I believe they are tax records that should be kept. But I think to your point, I think it's both. I think absolutely the information, but I think we need to decide. I don't think these are the kind of thing that are going to be, in a display case that somebody's going to be going and looking for. But it'd be nice to keep them in the town vault with everything else that's been preserved and at least archivally stored.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Are these the first copy of the Declaration of Independence where it's actually worth something for the historical value, or do we want the information? I think we should focus on saving the information, whatever it costs, to save the information, because that's the important thing. As far as the actual paper and the books, from what I'm hearing, they're pretty far gone. So we're going to spend a lot of money to get them looking like new again, and then put them in a box so that our grandkids have to do this all over again. No, I don't think that's wise at all. That's not wise spending of the money.
I agree with you, Mike. Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. This was one of those things that, yes, we need to focus. We don't have bottomless pits of money here to do all this with. I think if we can, scan the actual books themselves, if there's some way that we can halt the damage that's been done and then maybe put them in an archival box or something like that. I don't think we need to be taking these apart and treating each page and re-gluing them all back together and spending $20,000 or $50,000 on it, because it won't be looked at again, probably. I mean, if we can digitize it and put it on a website, so people can scan through and look at it. That's how people are looking at information. If we can do that, at a reasonable cost, maybe see what of these things we can preserve. But I agree with you 100%. I mean, $20,000, that's a huge amount of money. And that's only for this one box. And from what I understand, I think there are other boxes. Are there other boxes, Dan? This is it?
There's some confusion. It was stuff that was pulled out of the records room. And then after review, it was determined that this is stuff that should remain with the town versus whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and it can remain with the town, and maybe we can do little bits here and there. But I honestly think, to ask the town to spend, $20,000, and we don't even know what that will cover at this point. We don't know if that will cover even half of the cost of this. And I think it's something that we need to talk a little bit more about rather than just rush to do at this point. That's my opinion. Anybody else can, differ, but that's how I feel.
I think I would agree. I think at this point, it sounds like this might be something that should get tabled and revisited in May if there's a more specific request with more information.
Yeah.
Okay. Will someone want to make a motion then to pass over this article?
Well, again, don't misunderstand me. I wasn't looking to pass over it. If the information in those books are valuable, then we should definitely go forward and save the information. As far as saving the physical book, I don't think it's worth it. But I don't believe we should abandon the idea of not preserving the information unless it's not important.
I think that can be done without funding. I think we can open them up and scan them. And I think, at least for me, I think I'd like to really understand exactly what these are before we, talk about spending money on them.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of just, getting rid of it. What I'm more in favor of is let's look for a more economic way of actually doing this and finding out what the use is rather than just jumping and saying, okay, yeah, it's going to be $20,000 to do this or whatever, without actually knowing what value we're getting for our money and what we're going to do with it. So no, it certainly wouldn't, it might be passed over at this meeting, but that gives us more time. This has just come up in like the past couple of weeks. This would give us more time to investigate, I think, and come up with a solution and say to people, this is what we're going to do with it, and this is what the money's going to, which I don't feel comfortable standing up in front of people and saying, yeah, it's going to be $20,000, because they're going to come straight back and say, well, what are you going to do with them?
Well,
And we don't know.
I wonder if, some of the money could be used just, like you were saying, to make sure that the mold just doesn't ruin them. Maybe you could find out how much that might cost so that you could then scan them and then figure out if you want to really preserve them more.
Yeah.
But I wonder if we should vote then a certain amount of money that you could use to get rid of the mold.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware of that these were so severely molded. That was not
Oh, yeah.
originally conveyed to us when these were discussed.
Yeah.
I mean, it may make sense to set aside, 5 or 10,000 so it's available, but I think, it sounds like if this can be held in some sort of a freezer, some sort of storage, that buys us time to better research this and figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Well-
mean, the mold, when you try to open the boxes, literally you gagged when you open that box.
Wow.
It was really bad. And the books themselves, I don't know what was going on with them, but we weren't sure if they were wet or if they were freezing cold. We had no idea. You couldn't really tell the difference, and we didn't really want to handle them that much either.
I mean, the problem too is if they have a lot of mold on them, you're not going to want to run them through your scanner because that could contaminate other documents, right?
Yeah, possibly.
It's a photograph.
Yeah.
It's over, but,
Okay.
um,
Well, what do you want to do?
I
I would
personally,
say table it.
I think we have enough things. I think, I think we can preserve them until the next go
Yeah.
around where we have a better understanding of what our options are. And,
Okay.
go from there.
So do you want to make a motion, Dan?
So I guess I would move to pass over this article.
Second?
Second.
I second.
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? I guess say aye in your name. Dan,
Dan, I.
Michael, Goddard,
Mike Goddard, aye.
Mike Amendolia,
Mike Mandelia, aye.
Lynn,
Lynn Roberts, aye.
Barry,
Barry Iderola, aye.
Peter Denton, are you on the phone?
Yeah,
Oh, hi,
Aye.
Peter. Do you have a vote?
yeah, I said I agree with you.
Okay. And then I don't vote unless I'm breaking a tie. Is that the way it goes with the chair?
It's up to the chair. There's
Oh.
there's no written rule. It's decided, it should be decided either at each reorganization of a committee or before every meeting, either way. There's no written law that says the chairman can vote or not vote. It's the chairman's prerogative, but it should be made known before.
Oh, well,
Instead of picking and choosing when you're gonna vote. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
when we reorganize, that's when you should say, okay, as chairman for the next year, I have decided not to vote, or I have decided I will vote. That way there's no conflict of, well, you're voting on this and you're not voting on that. You
Should I
gotta
put
be
that in,
consistent.
should I put that on the agenda for the next meeting?
Sure, just to make
Okay.
sure it's documented.
All right. Okay, well, that passes. Then the other item that you have is the windows in town hall.
Right. So this is the one, and unfortunately, we're still not getting a lot of information. The state's not responding to us. Kathy had a contact who isn't getting back to us. The goal is to replace the windows in town hall that will have to come back and be a much larger request. But because of all the intricacies, we need to do a little bit of upfront kind of design to make sure we're speccing the proper thing. I think somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 range is probably what we're looking at to potentially pay a consultant to come in and advise us. We can't get anybody to get back to us. I couldn't even get the state to respond about what the requirements are. And I don't see Kathy on the call. That's kind of where we're at with this one right now.
Well, again, what are we trying to do? Are we committed to, when we work on the town hall, to use authentic materials and restoring it to original condition?
Yes. There's a preservation restriction in place. Let me just look at it again and just double check. Like, we can't use AZAC. If we put up, we can do modern windows, but they need to be a specific historic replica design. In this case, it's a little bit weird because the windows that are there now are garbage. They aren't the original historic windows.
No, I remember replacing them
Right.
Probably 10 years ago, maybe even longer.
Probably longer.
Yeah, you know
Probably
how
longer.
time flies
Yes.
when you're having fun.
But they've, at this point, it just, if I can find this restriction, I'll see exactly what it says. Basically, we have to go to the state. We have to get permission. But I don't think we can just say we want to replace the windows. They're going to want to know the exact design, the material, the specs, all that.
We've used CPA funds on a lot of different restoration on town hall, and in order to use CPA funds, you have to put a preservation restriction on the property. And so the town hall and the library both have historical preservation restrictions.
Preserve the characters. Oh no, wrong thing. Yeah, preserve the characteristics which contribute to the architectural, archaeological, historical integrity of the premises in a manner satisfactory to the commission in accordance with the Secretary of Interior standards for treatment of historic properties, blah, blah, blah. So basically any work we do has to meet their standards is, I guess, the answer to your question, which is going to be historic
So,
productions.
can we get a copy of the standards to look at? I'd be interested in looking at
Yeah.
that. And why I say that is I replaced windows in Lakeville at a 150-year-old granite water treatment facility for the city of New Bedford. And I had to make sure that they matched the 100-year-old windows that I took out that were failing. So, and I
Probably
don't
the exact
remember
same
any,
thing we got to do.
right.
Um,
No, and we used Pella Window Company.
So it may not, I don't know, it may not be all that involved. Kathy does not think, she has talked to the state before that, I was thinking they were going to want all sorts of crazy engineering. I think we just may need to involve a consultant or maybe not. We may not need to spend any of this money. It just was having some funds available so we can come back in May with a plan. Because I think the actual request to change these windows is probably going to be 100,000 or more.
Well, again, I think we gotta find out what the actual requirements are. What do we want to do? As far as giving someone $30,000 or $40,000 to advise us what to do, I'm not for that when you can call Pella, the company, and say, hey, come on down, we want a price on these windows, this is what we want. But we gotta know, we required to, what our requirements are, what the state is gonna require us.
Right.
And is it worth it?
I think also though with the like if you had someone like consult, would they help you with the RFP to say this is the requirements that you need to have when you?
That would be part of it. I mean, I would not spend 40,000. I mean, that's outrageous. I would agree. I think that would be part of it, is we would have them write the RFP because it has to be very specific, but you can't, all that stuff the rules you got to follow to not specify brands. I mean, really, this would basically take the place of using some of the administrative funds because it's town meeting time. That was really the only reason to put this way instead of just coming and asking for some funding from administrative. But unfortunately, we don't necessarily know what the costs are yet, and I understand that we may not want to vote on that without that information. So, I guess I would be asking to set aside, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10,000 is probably plenty.
Well,
And
do
if
we want to,
we don't need it.
set aside money so that they can have the consultation?
I mean, we may not need any of it, which would be great. I don't know.
I think if we could set the money aside, this is one of like the big projects that we really want to get moving on. And like Dan said, it's trying to get information back from people is not easy at all. But if we could set that aside, because the lady that, I want to make sure I get this right. I didn't chime in before because I thought Kathy was going to be on the line. But Kathy's been working with someone, but they're in the western part of the state. She's done this work before and is on the Worcester, the state list of authorized people to do windows in buildings with preservation restrictions. But in order for her to come out and even take a look, there is the consulting fee. I don't know. I can't remember. Dan, do you remember what Kathy said that was? We didn't have
She
it
seemed
written
to
down.
think it
She
was a
had a
couple
guesstimate,
thousand,
I think.
but she's not
Yeah.
responding to us. The person, not Kathy. That's the problem.
She's the one that's not responding. Okay. Yeah.
That's where we kind of
Well,
stalled.
then I make a suggestion, we wait until we get some better information, because if it's all that important, which obviously we're getting mixed information. I'm hearing it's important to do, but yet we got no facts.
Right.
So
I
I think we can always meet again and authorize some funds to go that way. But to put, just to take money and put it in an account, so everybody goes, oh, they got that much money in there, let's get it and spend it.
Right.
No, I don't agree to that.
Well, if you come up with the dollar amount, Dan, Lynn,
Yep.
we can meet before the town meeting,
Probably
or
have
we
Okay.
can meet before
Right.
that. So why don't you get back to us on that?
Okay. Yeah, we'll let you know. And if we need to vote on it, maybe we could do another thing, but we'll certainly work to try and get a concrete figure on this within the
Okay.
next week or two. I'm sorry, Mike, did you say that you contacted Pella Windows?
Hello Windows, I'll try to
Okay.
get it's been 3 or 4 years now since I've done it. I'll have to look through my records and see if I can come up with a name to get to
That would
you.
be great. Okay, thanks.
I mean, it kind of makes sense that they would have someone that might, deal with the historic
Right.
restoration
Yeah.
type of windows, because,
Right,
you're not the
because-
only ones looking for this. Yeah.
No, and they have to meet certain requirements when you bid a job, especially municipality work.
Mhm.
You've got a spec book, and you go, okay, and you hand the specifications to the window guy and say, can you make this window, et cetera, et cetera. You know?
Yeah.
But that's not the biggest problem. Again, I think we should find out just what are our real options?
Mhm.
What are our real requirements? As far as I can see, we're guessing at what we have to do.
I
And
agree.
I don't operate like that. I
Um,
try not to.
Dan, or Lynn, could you send the standards to
I-
the committee members?
In the process of,
Okay,
I will forward that so you can look at it. Yeah.
all right. So the next item is the recreation. Dan? I mean, we talked about it
Yeah.
at the last meeting. I think you have a dollar amount.
Yeah, hang on. I closed it. This one. Yeah, so this is funding to convert the tennis courts at Memorial Park, as well as that kind of multi-use mini basketball court at Clough for pickleball courts. The total request is 24,900. Memorial Park is going to be 14,500. Clough is 9,400, and then an additional 1,000 to purchase some nets that would be at Clough School. And then we'd have to go out to bid and get so that's based on the estimate that we got.
All right, does someone make the motion that we can discuss it more? Dan, you want to make it?
Yeah, I move that the CPA approve the funding for this article. I don't know what the exact wording is. to fund pickleball courts at the park and Clough School.
Yeah, to fund the upgrades to the Memorial Park tennis courts and Clough School basketball courts, to add lines for pickleball courts and purchase portable pickleball nets. Someone want to second that?
Second.
All right. So any questions or discussion or
Yeah,
comments?
the school court, would that fall under the school department?
So it's
I can
so-
understand
Yeah.
the town's park, because we own that. But what's the story with the school?
So the town owns Clough School. That is town property. The school leases it from the district leases it from the town. I think that's actually on the warrant too. So this is the park doing this mainly to benefit the public, although the school would have use of it. I suppose we could see if they're interested in contributing. I didn't specifically ask that question. Really, the reason I picked that location is because that court is very underutilized. And that field is not really used by leagues in the summer. So it would take pressure off of Memorial Park, and you'd have 2 pickleball courts if you wanted to have a league up there. That wouldn't
And it would-
interfere with basketball and everything else going on.
So
Do
it would
we
be
have-
open to the public,
Yes,
I was
outside of
gonna
school
ask
hours.
that question.
and the pickleball will get used. If you put nets up there, it'll 100% get
You
used.
say it's open to the public. Is that at any time of the day, like the park,
Right.
Outside of
Or do
school
you
hours, have to be.
outside of school hours?
Right.
So it's not readily available 24/7 like the park, Memorial Field.
Right. It would be it
Right.
would be limited partially.
In the
Right.
summer, it would be open,
Right.
obviously,
So yeah.
when is the time that it would be used a lot also.
Well, it's not the first time we've used CPC funds for school. I mean, we did some of the
The playground.
like some of the jungle gym stuff, the buildings. Didn't we
did
give
the
them?
surface for the front
Right.
playground, that poured in place rubber. Both Mendon and Upton funded the respective elementary schools.
And are we doing a green communities grant for Clough to like HVAC or something as well?
Yeah, we have it right now. It's
Yeah.
retro commissioning their HVAC system. Mhm. We have
I
a
mean, I had a
grant for that.
similar question, Mike, in terms when I hit the school and just to understand how is Upton doing something similar on for the school district in their town, or is it strictly a Mendon sort of?
So this request was just me. I do know that Upton spends a ton of money on their fields through CPA, including the fields at Memorial.
Mhm.
I don't have specifics, but I'm sure they've spent tens of thousands on that baseball field back there.
Is that field in the back of Clough still used for youth soccer as well?
Yeah, so right now it's used. I'm trying to remember. It's a lot of demand. It's youth soccer, field hockey is in the fall, and baseball was using it in the spring as well. I mean, we could build 10 more fields and we wouldn't have enough, but that's another story. Eventually, we'll get to that point. That'll be next. But
I think the fact it's underutilized, Dan's a good point. I'd support it.
I think
mean-
also it's nice to have the option for people, to have another place to go. And if it's, has the pickleball nets, people will use it for that.
I mean, it's only that portion of the project, so it's 10,400, and then the Memorial Park is 14,500. It's a little
Who'll
bigger.
be maintaining it?
I would say
Not gonna-
same as now. There's not really any maintenance. It's painting the surface. So they're going to paint the
Right.
surface.
And you leave the nets up year
And then-
round?
We'll have to talk to the school. I already had a few conversations with them about the plan for the nets. They will either be taken in and put out. They will be rented by someone. We have to figure out exactly how we want to do it, or if they want them, if they'll be used.
Well, I mean, that might drive the access question, right, Dan? I mean, the school can't put them in the school for storage if
Right.
the school's shut down, right?
No, I think the argument would be you'd either chain them to they're on like wheels, so you'd chain them
Yeah.
to the fence with a combination lock, or it would be a portable kit that you would check out from the Parks Department. I've been looking at a few options, and 1,000 is the high end. There's some much cheaper options out there. That was like the Cadillac of nets.
I think it's a nice option to offer the public. You know, it's another area that they can, you know, play a sport and, you know, recreate.
Could you split this into two motions and let the people decide if they want to expend it? I think the option's a nice thought, Ann, and I don't know if you can split this into two separate motions on a single article.
I guess you'd have me an amendment on the floor, maybe?
Somebody could amend it on the floor. I don't know if
Yeah.
because it's one on the warrant. But I think I don't know how it's written, but I guess the motion should specify the three things.
Yeah, we could do that, definitely. And then if somebody wanted to make an amendment on the floor, they could to separate it.
I don't know.
All right, any other comments or? Should we vote? On the motion, okay, all those in favor, Dan,
Aye.
Mike, go
Yeah.
Goddard,
I got it.
Mike and Leah,
Mike Mandelia, nay.
Lynn,
Lynn Roberts, aye.
Barry,
Barry, aye.
Peter,
Nay.
so I guess it passes. Was that everybody? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 yes. 2 no. Okay. All right. Did you get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second,
All those in favor, Dan? Or
Aye.
any discussion? Okay, Dan,
Aye.
Mike Goddard,
Aye.
Mike Mandelia,
Mike Mandelia, aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Peter?
I have to abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay,
Excuse me.
all right. Okay, anything else that people want to talk about or bring up or talk about next meeting?
I had one, and I guess maybe Mike Goddard, maybe you know more. It sounded like there was an email from Kim that seemed to indicate that they might be interested in CPA funding for another town hall project. I think it was like engineering for the back hall and the stairway, but is that request on the table or no?
I don't believe she was looking for CPA funds for the back half, the elevator design thing that from your meeting. Dan, is that
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
Is it just a design or actually to install it?
She sent an email. And I met with Historic yesterday, discussed the next steps, blah, blah, blah. There's an article in the warrant. Can we use CPA admin for some or all administrative funds? And I think I replied and said, why don't we just fund it, vote at a town meeting if it's on the article? But I don't know.
Did in
Is she looking
the,
for, I mean, there's an article out there, so she's now looking for a source for funding for her motion. Is that right?
I don't know. I guess my point is, my understanding is this commission has to recommend any expenditure of CPA funds. So if the intent was to request CPA funds as the funding source, hopefully someone comes and talks to us.
So I
maybe
guess-
the next meeting, but
it doesn't say CPA funds on that warrant. What does it say in the warrant?
I have no idea. It may have been there was an email, and so I don't know if there was any follow up or if it was just
Okay.
another
You
plan.
mean,
Don't forget that, any expenditure of funds at a town meeting's got to get a recommendation, from the finance committee. So I would presume, I haven't heard of anything yet, but I would presume that it's gonna be presented. I mean, the CPA funds, the CPA committee makes the recommendation, and then the moderator turns to the finance committee for the final recommendation.
I guess on that email, I
Town
wasn't,
bylaw.
uh-huh. I wasn't clear if, this was to do a study to figure out what needs to be done. Because CPA funds could be used for that, but,
Yeah, I think my takeaway from the meeting we had is I think there's going to be some engineering costs to figure out, you know, they want to take down a wall and open up that whole back alcove and restore what was the original layout of that back room. So it certainly would qualify, I think, because it would be historic, you know, in a way, historic restoration. I just don't know. I guess I'm just questioning if you never heard any more, then maybe it's all set. I just wouldn't
Well-
want this to get skipped and then be on the floor and find out that they don't have the votes they need to fund the thing they thought they needed. I don't know.
well, I'll get back to Kim and then, find out, if that is something that she wants and that we need a number, and so maybe we'll just have to meet again.
I think we could use administrative funds. It just seems like if we have the access to the town meeting, better off spend that money and leave administrative for stuff that comes up.
Well,
we
the
can
other
spend
thing-
much.
Definitely. And the other thing is that the records room money that you wanted to use on administration, that was a lot of money, and that wasn't taken out of last year's administrative funds. So if we can vote something at town meeting, that's better.
Yeah, that's another. We got to find another architect or somebody.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I'll get back in touch with Kim
Yeah.
and find out what's happening with that. Okay. I mean, unless you know something more, Mike.
No, I mean, I've probably brought up CPA funds to Kim on some of this stuff more, and she keeps saying that she should be all set. So I'm kind of curious to understand that email.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she's thinking that they'll do the engineering and then come to the CPA and
Yeah.
request money. But okay.
But that would be May, because I mean, this special town meeting article is only about getting funds to do like the design and the architect work, things like that.
All right. Well, I'll get back in touch with Kim, and if we need to meet again, we can pull together a meeting. So, anything else?
Motion
All right.
adjourned.
Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Good night.
All right. Thank you.
Aye.
See you later.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Anne.
Good night.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.